Hey, everybody. I'm Clif G, grateful alcoholic. Sober since August the 15th of 2001. And for that short amount of time, I'm as grateful as I know how to be. And I'm sort of in Louisiana tonight. And so that's good that I'm sort of here. And my plane was on time today, in case you were wondering. I didn't lose any bags or anything. Everything just went perfect today. So it was no problem. Yeah, you know, Janet, thumbs up, right? I want to thank my friend Billy for inviting my wife, Lori, and I to be with you all here. We were really looking forward to being in Louisiana, and I'm so sorry that we can't be. And I'm so sorry for you all and your committee, because Molly, I know how much work. I chaired our area convention several years ago, our area conference, and there's a lot of work that goes into these, and it's a lot of stress, and geez, you just hope it all comes off, and then you have a pandemic, and well, then here we are. And so my hats are off to you all for staying the course, though, and doing something to have something that keeps you guys together, the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'm really, really glad that you all did this, and I think it's great. And I want to thank Lindsay for reaching out to me. She's hiding around here somewhere. You know, I've discovered here in these last 4 months in this Zoom era that I never was much of a 13th stepper, but I've discovered in the Zoom era, I'm kind of a 14th stepper. I like to watch. So I kind of scroll through all the videos and just watch everybody. I know you're out there, Lindsay, because you chatted to me earlier. So I want to thank you for doing such a great job and keeping in touch with me and here at the end and making sure Lori and I got everything we needed. And I want to thank you and just thank the whole committee for your hard work. There you are. There, you thought you could sneak out. I got you. Thank you for all you guys' hard work and everything that you've done. You know, I had a friend in Oklahoma City. He would say that alcoholics are the upper crust of the mentally ill. And there's no doubt about that. But if you work on any kind of service committee in Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll think really they're further down in the meringue. They're not even on the crust at all. They're way down in there, you know. So my hats are off to you all for a great job of putting this together and being a part of all this. And what a weird time, huh? I mean, just what a strange time. But yet, you know what? In this time, what I know is being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and being a witness to all the miracles that I've seen over the last 18 plus years. What I can tell you is out of every tragedy or circumstance that I've ever had in my life, at the end of all that, what I know is there was always some kind of miracle that God pulled out of that. And I think the miracle for people in Alcoholics Anonymous has been, I remember about 10 years ago when I was the area chair in Oklahoma, the big deal from GSO was internet, friend or foe. You know, the internet's going to ruin us. We're all going to go down. There'll be all these anonymity breaks. It'll just be horrible. My God, the internet is saving our bacon today. And the truth be told, there should be no other segment of our population, and I mean the population of the world, no set of our population probably better suited or should be better suited for something like this than Alcoholics Anonymous. Because we're taught as soon as we get here that our reliance has to be on some other power other than the human power, that our reliance is always on God. And when this thing hit, I'm telling you, Alcoholics Anonymous rallied. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous, and my friend Mike, who's recording this tonight, my gosh, he's been busier than a guy on a fire ant bed. I mean, he's just been recording stuff all over the world for the last 4 months. And I don't know about you, but I've probably gone to more meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in the last 4 months than when I was 1 year sober. I mean, how can you not? And you just go everywhere. I mean, it's not like I got to go to my home group, which I do. But my God, I can go to Australia, Great Britain, the UK. I mean, I can go to Canada. I can go to Mexico, Russia. I go anywhere. And what I've discovered through all that is, you know, when I got sober, my world was about that big. It was really, really small. And when I went to my first conference, I thought, man, Alcoholics Anonymous is really something. When I went to my first international conference, I thought, wow, Alcoholics Anonymous big. But let me tell you something. In these last 4+ months, Alcoholics Anonymous has showed up really huge. and you see just how big this really is. And the connectedness to the fellowship. I don't know that I've ever felt more connected to the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous than I have in these last 4-something months, because I have met people from all over the world and got to go do stuff all over the world. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I know it's a tragedy what's going on, but I'm just telling you, I've had fun. If you hadn't had fun, maybe you're just boring. I don't know. But I've had some fun in AA since I've been stuck here. And I hope you've had some fun too, because after all, our book says we're not a glum lot, and if you're a glum lot, you're just boring. I don't know what to tell you, because we have fun in AA. Because if it ain't fun, I'm going to go do something else, and it's fun. So, again, thanks for having me. I don't know how many of y'all came to see my wife, Lori, today, but just don't believe anything she said. I don't want you prejudiced. I don't want you coming here with some old ideas about Clif tonight. Some of you already feel sorry for me, and you should. You should feel sorry for me. I'm glad you feel sorry for me. But she's amazing. I told Lindsay earlier. She said she really enjoyed Lori today. I said she's really the main event. I'm kind of the freak show, the sideshow in this whole carnival that we have going on over here in Oklahoma City. But be that as it may, I'm really glad to be here. We're both glad to be here. Here's what I know for a fact, and I'm willing to stake my whole sobriety on it, and that is this. Wherever you're sitting tonight, if we took a string and we went out 5 blocks from your house and we just drew a big circle, we wouldn't have to knock on very many doors before we came to a door, and the scenario would run something like this. In that house this morning, we would have found somebody sitting at a kitchen table, and they're being really, really quiet. As a matter of fact, the whole house is dead quiet. It's 10, 11 o'clock. And back towards the back of the house, there's a little room where a couple of kids are in there, and they're trying to be really, really quiet. They're really, really quiet. And around 11:15, 11:30, the other person in the house came out of the bedroom. And when they made their way down the hall, they sat at that kitchen table across from the other one. And the conversation started something like this. I am so sorry. I am so sorry for what happened last night. And they just launch into this description of what happened. And they get to the end of that conversation, and they're going to say something like this. And I'll tell you this, I promise you one dang thing, that's never gonna happen again. And here's what I'm willing to stake my whole sobriety on, that right now, that very person who swore they would never do it again is drunk and has no more idea why that happened than a man in the moon. Why do we come together? Why do we gather up? Why do we celebrate birthdays? Why do we celebrate anniversaries? Why do we do group anniversaries? Why do we come together for conferences, conventions, roundups, service committees, workshops? Why do we do that? We do that for one thing and one thing only. So that the people there sitting at that kitchen table this morning stumbling in can find us. They have no idea that all they have to do is go to their computer room and log on, look for AA Louisiana, and they can find the solution to their drinking problem with just a couple of mouse clicks away. They have no idea about that. They're totally clueless about that. That's why we gather up. That's why we get together. Our textbook tells us we meet often so the new people can find us. It's the purpose of every meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, so new people can come and find us. And so we're here tonight, and we're here to gather at this state convention and to celebrate Alcoholics Anonymous in Louisiana. And we're here to say that Alcoholics Anonymous works. And it works because the 73 people on this screen are here tonight as a testament of that. Now, if you're here tonight on this screen and you're new or you're nearly new, I've got a couple things. And if you don't hear anything else I say tonight, I really need you to hear this. If you're new or you're nearly new in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're wanted, welcomed, and needed here. You're wanted, welcomed, and needed in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I always tell new people there's good news and there's bad news about coming to AA. First, the good news. You always want that first. The good news first, there'll be a time when we'll actually, hopefully, all be back together. And you're going to wander into these meeting places and these home groups, and some of the people on these screens are going to be in those meetings. And the good news of all that is that these people are going to be your new best friends. Of course, the bad news, these people on this screen going to be in those meetings are going to be your new best friends. That's the bad news as well. So, this is just us. If you've come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I've never been where people showed up and said, "Hey, hit me." I mean, there's nowhere to refer you down from here. You're just here and you're with us, and we're glad you're here. We really are glad you're here. Even in this time of Hollywood Squares, we're glad you're here. Bill Wilson wrote in the essay on the fifth step in the 12 and 12. In that essay, he uses a phrase. He says something about anxious apartness. When I read that the very first time, that resonated in my core, anxious apartness. As long as I can remember, and I don't want you to think that as a kid I had some kind of great insight into myself. It's not that at all. But what I can tell you is that I've done a significant amount of inventory work since I've been here. And what I've discovered about that is from the time I was a little kid growing up, I've had those feelings and those thoughts of wherever I was, if I could be over there, it would be better. I would hear from Bud, and Bud would say, "Hey, we're going to go out. We're going to do something tonight. Will you come?" I'd say, "Yeah." And then Sue would call me and say, "Hey, we're going to go do something tonight." And I think, I don't want to miss out. I want to go do that. Wherever I am over there seems like a better deal. And I'm one of these people that look at your outsides and I compare that to my insides, and I lose every time. I mean, no matter how I do, I look at it and I think something like, if I had your parents, your brothers, your sisters, if I dressed like you, if I was as tall as you, if I was athletic as you, if I had your car, if I had your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever, if I could have some of that, my life would be better. Somehow, I think if I can change the external circumstances, somehow I'm going to be okay. And I'm always just on the edge. I'm just one step away from saying screw you at any time. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and what you good people said to me was, you said, "Clif, you're just restless, irritable, and discontent." And for the very first time in my life, you people put words on how I felt my entire life. Bill described on page 52 of the big book, he talks about the bedevilments. And when I read the bedevilments in here, I said, this is it. I've been bedeviled my entire life. I've just been bedeviled. And that so resonates with me. That so much describes my entire life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. This anxious apartness, this restless, irritable, discontent, these bedevilments. That so adequately described me. Now, when I was 11 years old, and it's important that you know that I had 11 years of sobriety. When I was 11 years old, my brother, on a hot summer day in July in Oklahoma, down a little place called Hugo in southeast Oklahoma, he cracked open a Tall Boy Country Club malt liquor. There's some of you people here I know something about Country Club malt liquor. Yeah, Daryl does. Cracked open a Country Club malt liquor, and he took a big drink, and then he handed it to me. And I took a big drink. And I know all of you have personally felt this. You've described it this way. You've heard other people describe it this way. And however you want to describe it, it doesn't really matter. People say things, "It's the first time I really took a deep breath." Or they'll say things like, "It's when I felt like my skin finally fit." Or they'll say things, "It's when the world went from black and white to technicolor." And all that is true. All that is true. But what I can tell you for me is this. I got 8 minutes of peace. Drinking with my brother, what happened to me, the magic of alcohol happened to me. When I drank that beer with him, that beer hit my stomach, and for 8 minutes, I got relief from all those things that I described to you prior to taking that drink. And that 8 minutes, that magic of alcohol, what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, it says that 8 minutes, that illusion that alcohol creates in an alcoholic of my type, that illusion it creates, that I'm willing to chase that into the gates of insanity or death. And I'll tell you this, every time I drink, I'm willing to pay that price tomorrow to remove me from what I feel like today, because alcohol worked. Now, let me tell you, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because everybody in my life was telling me I had a drinking problem. I came to AA and you people said, "No, Clif, you don't have a drinking problem. You got a living problem." if you're new or you're nearly new here tonight, don't run home and do like I did and say you're wrong. I don't have a drinking problem. That was not a popular topic of discussion, not a real viable option when I got to my house to disclose that, hey, AA says I don't have a drinking problem. Not popular. Don't do that. But it's the truth. I didn't have a drinking. I had a living problem. I had a drinking solution. And I'm one of you guys met Lori today when she was here. Always like to tell AA members, Lori's my fourth wife. We've been together for a long time. We've been together since 95. We've been married 21 years, and we were together for several years before I got sober. When I came to AA, I would tell people that she was my fourth wife because when I got here, you people wanted to talk about rotation of service. And so I thought, well, I could buy me some street cred if I could tell you that she's my fourth wife, let you know that I was hip to the idea of rotation of service as well. But that didn't go as far as I'd hoped it to go. But at any rate, but what happened for a guy like me is by the time I get to high school, I'm a daily drinker. And by the time I get to college, I'm a blackout drinker. And, I just don't know what's wrong with me. My drinking is different. When I went to work in Oklahoma City, I'm a lawyer by trade. When I went to work at my first law firm, after work, we would go down and drink. And I'm just telling you, my drinking is different than other people's. And I didn't really appreciate that till I got here. There was a lot of people that drank and looked like me. A lot of people when I was growing up, we would go out drinking. They looked a lot like me. And then what happened to them is they met somebody. And one day they just said, I'm not going out tonight. And they just quit coming out with me. Or they got a good job and they had to work on Saturdays. And they said, I'm not going out anymore. Now, see, me, I would have found a job that didn't require me to work on Saturdays. But they just decided that they would just quit drinking. And they could do that. They just quit. They looked a lot like me. But they could just stop. They get a good reason to stop. They would just stop. And that's not my story. But when I would go drinking after work, there was a markedly difference between the way I drink and the way other people drink. And I'll just tell you, we would go down after work. There were 4 of us go down. We would all get the cocktail waitress to come around. I'd order double vodka rocks. Within 5 minutes, I'm chasing her down, getting another. But everybody else would order, and about 15 or 20 minutes, she would come back to serve the rest of the table. And the conversation generally goes something like this. She looks at the first person, and they say, and their drink's about 3/4 gone. Look at the first person and say, would you like another? And he says something like this. No, my wife is home cooking dinner tonight, and I've got to be there. And this guy pays his tab, gets up, goes out, gets in his car, drives home to his house to his wife. This is strange, I know, for some of you people. Goes with his wife, has dinner. Afterwards, they may or may not have another drink. He may not drink today, tomorrow, next week, next year, next month, whatever. And then you go to the second person. The second person says something like this, about half of her drink's gone. And she says something like this, my daughter has a soccer game tonight. And I got to be there in an hour and just tab me out. And she pays her tab and gets up. And she gets in her car. She gets to her daughter's soccer game early, goes out to where her daughter is practicing, gives her a big hug, tells her she loves her, goes to the stands, talks to the other parents. Game starts. She cheers for her daughter, doesn't get thrown out, but just cheers for her daughter. Afterwards, the other parents, they're going to take the team out. They go out, they have pizza. Some of them have beers. She may or may not. She may not have another beer today, tomorrow, next month, maybe not even to next year. And then there's the third person. This is the one that always confounds me. This is the one that baffles me. But this is the one that absolutely tells me that my drinking is different than everybody else. And this person. You've been with them before. You didn't stay with them very long, but you recognize them. This is the person that has about 1/4 of their drink gone. Or maybe even worse than that. The ice is melting and the booze is running over the side of it. Now, we all know here tonight that's alcohol abuse as far as we're concerned. But the booze is running over it. And the cocktail waitress looks at her and says, would you like another? And she says the strangest thing. She says, no, I don't want any more. I'm beginning to feel it. And the first thought that comes through my mind is this. That's right. Right now, we start ordering tequila shooters. Right now, because we got 8-minute window. We got to get in and we got to get there quick. But what I know is this, that the statement she makes, that the impact of alcohol on her is significantly different than the impact of alcohol on me. What she says when she says, I'm beginning to feel it, what she's really saying is, I'm beginning to feel impaired. And see, that's a totally different feeling that I get when I drink, because when I drink, what happens to me is I begin to feel empowered. Once I start drinking, everything, it's a game changer. Everything in my life changes. And I know for a fact that we're getting ready to get wheels up. I mean, we're going to do some Jekyll and Hyde kind of stuff. I mean, we're going to go out and have an expedition, maybe a personal adventure or two. I mean, there's going to be a crash site. I'm not sure where it's going to be. There's going to be a crash site, but it's significantly different. That empowerment feeling that I get when I drink is so different, because what happens for me is the magic of alcohol. That idea of the sense of ease and comfort that I get, it tells me you got to recapture that 8 minutes. And I've been chasing that 8 minutes from the time I was 11 years old till I was 41 years old, when I walked in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous and sat down. And that piece of the puzzle, that idea that once I drink, that I can't stop. It's the commonality of everyone in this room who identifies himself as an alcoholic. Dr. Silkworth says it's the commonality of every alcoholic that once we start drinking, we can't stop. And there's only 3 times that I stop. I pass out, run out, blackout. Something's got to intervene. I mean, I don't just decide after 3, hey, I'm quitting. Something's got to intervene in there. Something outside of me has to happen. And I just drink. And as if that would be enough, you know, my drinking also looks like this. I come home, Lori's cooking dinner. She looks at me at 6 o'clock. She says, dinner be ready in an hour. We need a loaf of bread. Go get it. And I take off to the store and go get it. It's now 6:10. I walk out. I have a loaf of bread. I run into Janet. Janet says, Clif, what are you doing? And I said, I'm getting bread for Lori. She needs bread. Dinner's going to be ready in 50 minutes. I've got to get home. And Janet says, well, 50 minutes? Well, look, we could go over to the log in, have a couple of beers, and you could be home in 50 minutes. Now, what happens for a guy like me when I hear that? I run that statement through the keen alcoholic mind. You guys know what I'm talking about here? The keen alcoholic mind. You know, the keen alcoholic mind that you only hear about in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to assure you, at the Al-Anon meeting today, they were not talking about the keen alcoholic mind in the Al-Anon meeting. Don't be mistaken. That only occurs in AA meetings. And I run that through the keen alcoholic mind. It looks like something like this. 50 minutes, 2 beers. I can do that. And on a Thursday night, Janet and I go across to the log in, and with the intention of doing 2 beers, 50 minutes, I'm going home. Now, Sunday when I get home, everybody's mad at me. She's mad. The kids are mad. The dog's mad. The cat's mad. Everybody's mad at me. And I don't know why. I've got the bread. Apparently, this time requirement was a serious thing to them. I didn't really appreciate that. And they're all mad at me. And I do exactly what that guy or that gal did this morning. I get them all gathered up and I start to talk to them about what happened. And in the course of that conversation, when I'm telling them what happened, I start to tell them about Janet, how I ran into Janet. As I'm telling the story about Janet, what I start to tell them is how this is Janet's fault. I begin to tell them, if I hadn't run into Janet, I would have been home. I'd have had the bread, we'd have had dinner, and all because this is Janet's fault. And here's the crazy part about that. As I'm telling the story about Janet, I begin to believe it. I begin to absolutely believe that, by God, that's right. If I hadn't run into Janet, I'd have been home. And if I'd have got home, I wouldn't have all these problems. And, you know, I kind of pacify them, and I get up the next morning and I go to work. They're all still mad at me. And I go to work. And when I get to work, as I'm walking to work, I begin to feel about work. And I think about, you know, they don't really appreciate me here at work. I'm not really, you know, they kind of close their doors when I come by. They don't really engage with me. And I think about, they just don't really respect me at work. And I get to thinking about, I'm really not valued here. After all, I'm busting my hump down here 2-3 hours a day. I'm killing it at work, and they're not really appreciating the effort I'm giving here. And somewhere after work, I get in my car and I start to drive home, and I begin to think about home. They're still mad. And I don't know why. I apologized yesterday. And all this just goes on in my head. And I get home, they're mad. And I'm going to tell you something. This can go on for about 24, 36. On a really good stretch, I can get it 72 hours. But somewhere in there, I'm going to find myself drinking again. So whether I intentionally set out to do it or I just find myself in a bar without even remembering how I got there. I just accidentally get drunk. You ever accidentally got drunk? Just wind up in a bar, not even remember how you got there. And it's that second piece. It's this piece that when I'm stone cold sober, and I told them on Sunday, I'm never doing this again. And on Thursday, I'm drinking again. It's that piece of the puzzle, this peculiar mental twist that I have, this idea that I don't drink like other people. And when I'm not drinking, I don't think like other people. And those two pieces of my puzzle are what differentiate me from 90% of the population. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a guy that not one of these guys that are going to get up here and tell you tonight that I've lost things, because if I tell you I've lost something, that implies tomorrow I may go outside and kick a rock and find it. I've never lost anything. But what I'll tell you this is that I gave a lot of stuff away behind drinking. I gave a lot of stuff away because living the kind of life my mind told me I had to live. And I gave away 3 families before I got here. I met Lori. She and I didn't know she was untreated Al-Anon. The horns in my head seemed to fit the holes in her. We began to do the alcoholic dance, and we did that. And for the last 3 years of my drinking, I just didn't work. Now, listen, I had this big, I'm going to tell you, this big high-powered law firm that I was the first named partner of in downtown Oklahoma City. And I just quit going to work. I'm drinking. I just quit going to work. And I had all these great clients. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't go to work, that becomes a problem. If you don't show up for court, that becomes a problem. I know some of you have had some incidents with the legal system, and you know how bad it is if your lawyer don't show up. That ain't a good day. But anyway, judges would call looking for me, clients calling, where is he? Where is he? And I just don't show up, And so the last 3 years of my drinking, I just never drew a sober breath. I became what I like to call a functioning alcoholic. I had a wife that worked. I would tell you that I'm a real go-getter. I'd take her to work and go get her. That's what I would do. But my life just became that alcoholic life, that delusional life I lived in. I remember I saw a guy a couple of years before I got sober. I saw a guy out that I knew, and he said, "Hey, Clif, I haven't seen you in a while. What happened to you?" And I said, "Well, and you have to make these on the fly split decisions about what you're going to tell people you're doing. It's not like you can say, well, I decided to just become an alcoholic and stay at home. You just can't tell people that. And I'm delusional. And so I look at this guy with the straightest face I possibly could and said, well, I'm semi-retired. Here's the crazy thing. I started believing that. I'm not semi-retired. I just can't work. I can't function. I'm not like other people. That's just different. And eventually what happened is Lori had about all of me she could possibly stand. And after a couple of times of throwing me out of the house, in June of 2001, she had enough of me. She'd had enough of those episodes, as the first 3 wives I had, of where I start drinking on Thursday and I don't come home till Sunday. It's just how I roll. Once I start drinking, it's on. We ain't stopping. And I don't come home. And she'd had about enough of that, and she threw me out. And in June of 2001, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous was not a strange place for me. I'd been to treatment in the 80s, and some people showed up at my office one day and said, we think you have a problem with drinking and you need to go to treatment. Now, and if you don't go, we're going to take your professional license. Now, I want you to tell you, I'm not stupid. Sometimes a little slow on the uptake, but I'm not stupid. And they had a ticket, so I said, I'll take that. And I went to treatment, and I went out there, and I'm sure they said some great things. I got one of those $30,000 big books from the 80s I brought back with me. It looked like my high school yearbook. Everybody signed it. You'll do great. It'll be wonderful, all that stuff, And Alcoholics Anonymous came in to that treatment center. It was a good treatment center. They gave us a lot of good information. I'm sure the AA cheerleaders came in. But I didn't hear any of that stuff. And you know why I didn't hear any of that stuff? I'm not alcoholic. I mean, I'm sure if I'd have been alcoholic, that would have been good information for me. I mean, I don't want you to think that I didn't have problems. I mean, I had problems. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to believe that I'm just sitting here in total delusion that I didn't have problems. But my problems were not the drinking variety. I mean, I had back problems. I mean, everybody seemed to be on mine, and I needed to get them off. And so I thought if I go to treatment, they give me that airplane ticket. So I spent 30 days in the hot Arizona sunshine in July and August. Don't let them fool you. They'll tell you, well, it's a dry heat. I just remind them every time they tell me that, I remind them, hey, air fryers are dry heat too. It cooks stuff. So, hey, we're hip to the dry heat idea, So I spent 30 days out there, came back and didn't change anything about my life. I didn't change one thing about my life. I came to AA because they told me I had to. But I didn't do anything here. I came here and I drank your coffee. I occupied a chair and I chased your girls around. I caught one, took another one hostage. We produced a hostage yet, I mean, that's the deal. I didn't change anything about my life. I didn't change my lying. I didn't change my stealing. I didn't change my cheating. I didn't change any of that. I just didn't drink. And I'm restless, irritable, discontent. What I discovered today and what I know about me today, because I've done the inventory work in Alcoholics Anonymous, is that somewhere back in my life, I had this notion that I'm somehow separated from you. It's what creates this idea of restless, irritable, discontentedness. I love our friend Larcene, a great member of the Al-Anon family groups in California. He talks about information floats through the universe, lands on my head, and I just begin to take action on it as if it's the facts. Somewhere in there, I had this idea that I'm so different from you all that I'm just, it's like I was dropped here by aliens. I'm separate from you. And I had this idea, it wasn't that I didn't believe that there was something out there. I just believed that he didn't have anything to do with me, and I'm separate from that also. And this idea, Chuck did it the best when he drew that circle in that New Pair of Glasses book that he wrote. That circle, and inside the circle is the universe, God, everything is in that circle. And he draws the stick man right outside the circle. And so I so identified with that. It felt that way to me, that I'm different and separated from you. Now, what I know today is that can't be. It's impossible for me to be separate from you. It's impossible for me to be separate from this power that I've discovered in Alcoholics Anonymous. But in my mind, it became fact. See, I'm plagued with old ideas. I'm plagued with prejudices. I have these ideas of how the world works. And what I don't know about myself is that I'm selfish and self-centered to the extreme. I mean, I know some selfish people, but our book tells me that I'm further away than they are. I'm the extreme example of self-will run right. And our book talks to us about things that gives us examples of how we're different than other people. When it talks about leading a double life, it says more than most, the alcoholic lives this double life. And I get it. My friend Bill in California, he talks about that young angst that when we grow up, that everybody kind of feels this idea of separateness. But I have this belief that alcoholics have a more intensified feeling of that. We're more intensified in how we see the world. We are so delusional about that track, and I certainly am. And I have this idea growing up, these old ideas that what happens for a guy like me is I have this manuscript, I have this playbook, and what I have are expectations. And I know what it looks like to have relationships. Now, I never really had one, but I've seen TV and I know what they're supposed to look like. And so what I know is that when we go out on a date, how you're supposed to act. And if you don't hold my hand the right way, if you stand distant from me in public, if you don't tell me you love me in exactly the right way, you're not following the script. Now, I don't tell you what the script is. I mean, you're supposed to know. And so I have this idea of how this whole show is supposed to come off, what my life is supposed to look like. And I'm going to tell you what, that every time one of you failed me, every time one of you didn't follow the script, it led to the same thing every time. Restless, irritableness, discontentedness, because look what you've done to me. Look how you've treated me. And I've got a lifetime of that I've dragged into Alcoholics Anonymous. I've got a lifetime of burnt relationships. I've got a lifetime of failed marriages. I've got a lifetime of disheartened partners. I've got a lifetime that I've cheated people. I've got a lifetime of stealing from people. I've got a lifetime of lying to people. And I drag all that with me through my whole life, and I just add it as I go. And when I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, when they sent me that treatment center and I just didn't drink, what happens for a guy like me is I try to manufacture some kind of false power. And we learn that. We learn how to lie, how to cheat, and how to steal. So what happens is I lie to David and I get something over on him. I get the sense of power because I got something over on him. You know, I cheat Lindsay out of something. I cheat her out of something. I feel a sense of power. It's fleeting. It doesn't last long, but I get a sense of power. You know, I steal something from Jacob. I steal something from him. I get one over. I help him look for it. I don't want you to think I'm not a good guy. I steal something from him, help him look for it because I want him to find it, you know, help him. But I get one over on him, and I think I get some sense of power in that regard. But it's fleeting. And every time I lie, cheat, and steal, or I activate my character defects, they always end up the same. At the end of the day, I lack power. I become restless, irritable, discontent once again. And when I become restless, irritable, discontent, what happens for a guy like me is I remember that 8 minutes when I was 11 years old, the sense of ease and comfort, and I drink. And I've done that way my whole life. And when I just went to treatment and came back, none of that changed except I just didn't drink. But you know the deal. What I didn't know then, but I absolutely know today, is I was in the grips of a progressive illness. And the first time somebody offered me a drink, I said yes. And I'll tell you why. Because what I know about me today is the only time when anybody's offered me a drink, the only time I've ever said no to that question was if I misunderstood the question. And the time I had a drink after treatment, I didn't misunderstand. I just drank. And once I started drinking, I'm off and running again. But in 2001, Lori banished me from the house. And so I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I need to tell you, I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous in June of 2001 because this great revelation had hit me that I haven't worked for 3 years. I've been drunk for 3 years. I'm now homeless because my house is more her house than mine. And I'm out on the street. I need to come to AA because I got a problem. I didn't think that at all. I'll tell you why I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I came to AA because I came here thinking, because I had a newcomer plan. My thoughts were, I'm going to come to AA. I'm going to do this for 30, 45 days. Get the heat off me at home. I'm going to get her settled down. Tell her I'm coming to AA. I'm going to be a good boy for 30, 45 days. And I'm going to slowly go back to just living my life the way it was. I'm just ease into it. I've made some mistakes. I'll figure what those are. I'm going to correct them. Gently get back to living my life. And that's a good newcomer plan if you can hold on to that. Now, I've discovered since I've been here that if you're a real alcoholic, you can not drink and just go to meetings and stay sober. But there's two things that have to happen for you to be able to do that. So listen up. If you're one of those people that are looking for a loophole, this is it. This is how you can just not drink and go to meetings and be okay. But two things have to happen. One, nothing good can ever happen to you. Nothing good can ever happen to you because you know how we are with good news. We can't handle that. We don't handle good news at all. So nothing good can ever happen to you. And the second thing is nothing bad can ever happen to you. You can come to AA and just don't drink, go to meetings, but those two things have to happen. Nothing good and nothing bad. And if you can live your life like that, if you're a real alcoholic, God bless you. You can come in here and have a good life in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm a real alcoholic. I can't just not drink and go to meetings. You know, what happens for me is when I don't drink, my life does not get better. I mean, my sponsor one time was giving a talk down in Texas at the North Texas Roundup. And he was the Sunday morning speaker, and he got up, he said, how many people in this room quit drinking, their life got better? About half the room held up their hand. He said, I wish you'd get the hell out of AA, you're killing me, right? Because if I could just not drink and go to meetings, if I could do that, I don't need to be in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just don't drink, but I can't do that. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous with that newcomer plan, trying to figure out I'm going to ease my way back into the house. I'm going to come here, just slowly get back. What happened? I sat at AA for 40 days. And for 40 days, these were my thoughts. How do I drink and how do I stay sober? How do I drink? How do I stay sober? I mean, and that's a Rubik's Cube for an alcoholic. And if you're new or nearly new here tonight, I'm going to save you some valuable experimenting time. It's a physical impossibility to drink alcohol and stay sober, but I'm going to beat the laws of physics. I'm going to figure it out, you know. And as I'm sitting in those rooms, again, I didn't appreciate that I'm in the grips of a progressive illness over any period of time. I'm getting worse, not better. And I'm getting sicker and sicker and sicker in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because restless, irritable, discontented, anxious apart, bedevilments, the four horsemen, fear, terror, bewilderment, despair, they show up every day. And I don't know about you, but alcoholism never comes to see me about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's always at 3 in the morning. And they wake me up. I say they because there's a lot of them. And they get me up at 3 in the morning. They say, listen, we've been meeting for about 2 hours. We got a lot of things to discuss. Get up. And I get up and I'm plagued with all these things and they're just after me. And the whole world is coming after me. And for 40 days, I did that. And I had no escape from all that. On a Thursday afternoon, I got up from a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous after you good people said the Lord's Prayer. I walked right out of the door. I walked right in the bar. I sat down and started drinking because my choice was whether either I'm going to drink or I'm going to shoot myself. Because I'm going to tell you, for this alcoholic, just don't drink and go to meetings. There's no solution for a guy like me. What I need is something sustainable. What I need is something that's going to work in my life. And I need to know how you get out of the trap. How do you get out of that trap that when I drink, I can't stop, but I can't stay stopped when I tell you I'm going to quit? I can't get out of the trap. And so I start drinking, and I do what I always do. I start drinking on Thursdays. I come home on Sundays. And I showed up on Sunday, and Lori was none too happy to see me. I mean, once again, a fight ensued. I know that's shocking to you all. And there was another discussion about whose house it was. And come to find out one more time, it's more her house than my house. And what I did was I went to a buddy of mine's house and I detoxed on his couch for a couple of days. And on August the 15th of 2001, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous and I sat down here. Now, I had no idea that was the day I was going to sit down in AA. And I'm willing to bet the vast majority of the people in this room tonight, the day that you got sober, you had no plans to get sober that day. I mean, hell, I could have thrown a dart at a calendar and been just as good a predictor as August the 15th of 2001. Somebody asked me one time, said, Cliff, why August the 15th? I said, well, it's as soon after New Year's as I could get here, man. Just quick. That was it. You know. But I had no intentions to get sober on August 15th. I'm still working that same plan. I'm going to come here, work on this a little bit. Might take me 60, 90 days now to get back in the house. I made some mistakes. I think I can compensate for those. But my plans are still to get back in the house. I got no intention to get sober. None of the things you have to offer sound good to me, and they're really not a solution for my problem. I mean, if I had your problem, that would probably be a good solution, but I don't have your problem. And let's just be honest. On any given day before you come here and surrender, if you look at the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, they never look attractive. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's not like I walked in here and thought, oh, my God, I've been working on the inventory for weeks. Now I know what to do with it. Or, oh, my God, I've got these lists of people I've hurt. Now I know what I need to do. I mean, that's not my experience. I mean, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. That doesn't even apply to me. I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade. We look at things like write stuff down. No, that's evidence. We never do that. And we certainly don't tell anybody about it. We know that snitches get stitches. We don't do that. I mean, this is just, there's no mystery in this. But I'm going to tell you something. I can tell you when the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous look attractive to a guy like me. They look attractive when I walk in and I know I'm dying. When I walk into Alcoholics Anonymous and I know the jig is up, that's when those steps become attractive to a guy like me. It's when they become attractive. I detoxed on my buddy's couch. I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous on August 15, 2001. No intention to get sober. I sat in that chair and I began to think the things I've been thinking for 40 days prior to that. How do I drink and how do I stay sober? I got to get back in that house. I got to get her settled down. I got to get back to living my life the way I want to live it. And the head's just going. And I don't know if there's any head people in here with, not just a committee. I'm talking about a full board stockholders meeting where they're just going. I mean, a lot of people talking. They're just stumbling over everybody. If you're one of those people, you're going to appreciate this because there's about 15 minutes left in that meeting and my head goes stone cold quiet. Now, if you're a chatterhead like me and your head goes quiet, that's an attention getter. And I'm going to tell you, when it goes quiet, I sat right up. I was slumped down in my chair. My head went quiet. I came right up. And there was just this quietness. And then this voice came to me, a new thought. And the thought was this: if you don't do something different today, you're going to die. Now, what I need to tell you, that's not a thought that originated in me. That is not a thought that I would have had. My thoughts are, how do I drink and how do I stay sober? If you're new or you're nearly new in Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll hear things around here like keep coming back. I'm going to tell you this: don't keep coming back. Just stay here. Just stay here. If you're new or you're nearly new and you're here tonight, what I'm going to tell you is this, is that when I was out there drinking, cutting, slashing, sad, sick, and sorry, God never had a shot at me. But when I'm in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous for the very first time, God had a shot at me. And I'm going to tell you, almost as important as that, these good people here tonight had a shot at me. They never had a shot at me when I'm at my house all by myself. God never had a shot at me. But when I'm in an AA meeting, they got a shot at me. And you good people closed that meeting with 15 minutes left, and you circled up and said the Lord's Prayer, and I beat out of there like I've been beaten for the 40 days before that. Now, there was this room that I was in. There were 2 doorways in and out. Now, what I didn't tell you was for those 40 days I've been coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, there had been an old man there. And every day when you good people would end your meeting, that old man would get between me and the door. It didn't matter which door I was at, because someday I'd try to get around him. I mean, I would calculate, I bet he's coming here today, but he just materialized like out of Star Trek. He would just be there. I can't get around him. He's just there. And he would be there. And he would look at me and he'd say, "Bub, how are you doing?" And I'm going to tell you, I would give Don the same BS alcoholic answer I give everybody. I'm fine. I'm fine. And he would look at me and he would say, "Well, listen, if there's anything I can ever do for you, please let me know." And I would say, "Boy, Donnie, if there ever is, I will." And then what he would do is he would simply step aside and allow me to go on. In no period of time in there did he ever say, "Listen, this is what's wrong with you. Let me talk to you. Here's what you need to do." He didn't ever say, "Listen, you need to get a book and read it. You need to go to 90 meetings." He didn't say anything like that. He didn't try to convince me that Alcoholics Anonymous was the solution for me. What he would do is he would offer me friendship and fellowship. When I told him I really didn't want that, he would step aside and he allowed whiskey to do the job. He allowed whiskey. He didn't try to pull me up one drink short. When does those steps look good on the wall? Those steps only look on the wall when I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness. That's the only time the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous look attractive to me, when I've had this internal implosion of self. The circumstances and consequences in my life can be driving forces for me. Being displaced from my home, being jobless, being homeless, those things can certainly weigh on me. Those things can certainly be motivating factors. But I'm going to tell you, for this alcoholic, until I have a complete implosion of self internally, when I knew it was up, until then, it's just another bad day in my life. These ideas about step one experiences that we have, we call them all kind of things. We talk about the gift of desperation. I'm going to tell you, the day I'm sitting in that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and the other voice talks to me, I'm going to tell you that's a moment of grace. Grace. It's nothing less of that for me. And I'm going to tell you what happens for a guy like me in that moment. What happened for me was in that moment, in that 15 minutes left after the voice said, "If you don't do something different today, you're going to die," God cracked my heart. And in that time, what happened to me, he allowed me to stand in the crevice of my heart. And he allowed me to see me for who I really am. I saw myself exactly who and what I was. When I got up out of that meeting and held your hand and I beat for the door, trying my best to get out of there, Don was there for the 45th day. And he looked me dead in the eyes. He said, Bub, how are you doing? And I'm going to tell you, on August the 15th of 2001, I gave him a different answer. I said, Donnie, I'm not doing good at all. And he said, I know, like he's some kind of mind reader, you know. He goes, I know. He said, well, listen, if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. And I said, man, I need a sponsor. Now, I'm going to tell you about what happened in the moment that I said that. And I know you know these people. You've seen them at your meetings. There's probably some, Jacob's one of these people. He's always carrying that damn book around, right? So he's got that blue book. And there's always like a wave of little people behind him, just parroting everything he says, you know, and he's always on some committee doing something. He's early at all the meetings. And when somebody says something like this, I need a sponsor, it is like they took an extension cord and plugged it into the outlet. He just came alive. And Don looked at me and he said, that's a lot to ask of somebody. Let's sit here and talk about that. And I'm going to tell you, I believe that first step experience, that moment of grace, I think a lot of people get that. I think everybody in this room who's got some time, any appreciable time, that means one day have had that. But I believe there's an expiration date tagged to every step one experience that I've ever had. How many times did I come out of something saying, I'm never doing this again? Man, I can't believe I got over that. It's all over. How many times have we seen newcomers wash up in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, say the same thing, I'll do anything. And then 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, good idea. And they think, well, it wasn't that bad. Every first step experience, every moment of grace, every gift of desperation comes with an expiration date. And what happens for us in that moment when that expiration date occurs, you know, we talk around here about the only step we have to do 100% is step one. And I don't disagree with that. Every day I need to know I'm alcoholic, that I'm powerless over alcohol. I need to know it in here. But I'm going to tell you this. Step one, with nothing after it, just another bad day in the life of an alcoholic. Step one followed but with nothing, just another bad day in my life. I'll overcome that. I'll outthink it. It wasn't that bad. But see, Don was the kind of guy that he had read. He was a student of the book. And Don in there knew that where it read is that, you know, you had a couple of choices. In that chapter, We Agnostics, you kind of had this belief that the world was headed nowhere, tumbling into nothing, going to no place. Or he'd like to take the position that he was one of God's intelligent agents, ever advancing his creation. And I'm one of these guys that like to believe in stuff. I'm still delusional about some things, even in sobriety. I'm one of these guys that like to think when Don would get up every morning, he'd look in the mirror and he would say, good morning, God. It's Agent Don, and I'm showing up for duty today. I don't know what my assignment is, but I'm going to go out and see if I can find it. And I believe every day Don got up and he went looking for his assignment from God. He went up every day because he believed what that book said. He believed that book was talking to him when it said he had to fit himself for God and the people about him. And he went every day looking for his assignment. And on August 15th, 2001, I just happened to be his assignment. And he sat me down and he began to talk to me about what he was like, what had happened, and what he was like today. And he didn't talk to me from any kind of moral or spiritual high top. Man, he talked to me with a guy from a position of a message of depth and weight. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. And as I began to listen to him, what happened for me was the cotton began to fall out of my ears, and I began to hear for the very first time what we talk about, the music of Alcoholics Anonymous. Jacob, he's just beautiful, brother. The music of Alcoholics Anonymous. I began to hear that for the very first time, and I began to listen to Don, and I began to do the thing that's so critical, the number one thing we do here. I began to identify. See, Don was a pizza delivery guy. Don was a pizza delivery guy. He knew he had to deliver the pizza hot and fresh. And that's what he was doing for me that day. He was a pizza delivery guy. He showed up for me with the pizza, and he gave it to me hot and fresh. And he knew once he gave the pizza to me hot and fresh, the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, once he gave that to me, what I did with the pizza was up to me. How I ate it was up to me and my God, and what I did with it. His job was just to carry the beneficial message to me. And I'm going to tell you, at the end of Don's presentation, when he got completely done, I did the thing that I've done on that day, and I've tried to do every day since I've been here. And I know you all have seen those poker tournaments that they have in Vegas on TV, where you get the guy or the gal that gets the hand of all hands, and they push all their chips to the middle, and they say, I'm all in. And I'm going to tell you, on that day, I went all in on Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've gone in on Alcoholics Anonymous every day since then. And that's not to say that I've come to Alcoholics Anonymous and my life has all been lollipops and unicorns, because that's not my story. You'll get people up here and they'll talk about how great life is and how wonderful life is and what they've got and what they've done. And that's all wonderful and good. But life comes at me in reality. Life still comes at me. Life used to come to me before Alcoholics Anonymous in full volume, like I'm on the front row of a Def Leppard concert, just boom, right at me. What's happened for a guy like me is I've come here and I've taken the actions in Alcoholics Anonymous, and God's given me a modulator. And I've been able to modulate the sound of life through a process of the steps since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Don was one of these guys, when he laid it out to me, he got to the end of his presentation and we began to talk about my powerless and unmanageability. And I'm a real believer today that the depth of my unmanageability, the degree of my unmanageability when I get here, those things in my life internally, when I look at the unmanageability and I can internalize those, the depth of that absolutely gives the springboard to my commitment to step 3 when I get there. The degree of my unmanageability solidifies the depth of my commitment in step 3. When Don got through talking to me about step 1, when he got through going over my experiences, where I learned that I had to fully concede to my innermost self that I was alcoholic, that this was me. You know, faced with the stacked up in the evidence of my life, I had to surrender to the idea that this is me. And he just looked at me and he said, do you hope what I'm doing will work for you? And I said, man, I hope so. And he said, good, we're moving on to step 3. And I'm going to tell you, step 2 is a lot about hope. Demonstrations. Our book talks over and over again about demonstrations here. It talks early on that it's a much more important demonstration of our principles lie before us in our respective homes, occupation, and affairs. But I'm going to tell you the important demonstrations for me when I was early in sobriety, that first 30 days. I would come to Alcoholics Anonymous and I would watch you people. And it seemed to me that you were happy. I live life forward, but I understand it backward. At 30 days, I was thinking, you know, I hope what Don had going for him could work for me. And at 30 days, I hadn't wanted to drink or thought about drinking. And I knew something was happening to me. I remember one night before I went back in my drinking days, I was home about 3 a.m. I'd been up, I'd been drinking and using some accelerants that I like to do to enhance my drinking experience. I was up and Billy Banks came on and he was selling OxyClean. You guys remember Billy Banks selling OxyClean? 3 a.m. I know some of you. Emma was up at 3. I can tell what kind of person she was. I mean, I'm up in the morning early. You know, I'm up. I've been up for 3 days drinking and doing things, having a good time. And Billy Banks comes on. He's selling OxyClean. And he's talking about the stain removal power of OxyClean, the mess it creates. And I'm looking around. I'm kind of sitting in a mess. I mean, Lori's a bitch. You know, I'm kind of sitting in a mess here. And Billy talks about the powers of OxyClean. And he's got this clear tub, you know, and he begins to put all these dirty clothes with stains and everything in the tub. And he puts that OxyClean in there. And it's got that clear tub. Man, I'm looking around thinking, man, that's a problem. And I look around and think, I'm kind of in a problem here too. It's messy in this house. And it's just cleaning up. And at the end of it, the washer stops and he pulls out these clothes and they're clean. Whites are white, you know, all the stains are gone. And I'm thinking, I need OxyClean in my life, you know. And so I just get on the phone about 4:30 in the morning, and because you do things like this, and I started ordering OxyClean. And next day I was sharing with Lori about OxyClean, and she was saying, oh my God. And the OxyClean showed up. And so I just started practicing OxyClean in all my affairs. You know, I'm throwing it in the dishwasher, the washing machine. I'm everywhere, man. And everything getting real clean around my house. You know, I'm a thorough cleaner. And in about a month, I ran out. Now, what I need to tell you about that, at the end of that month, I didn't need to see another commercial about OxyClean. See, when I watched Billy on that commercial that night, and he did that demonstration for me, I came to believe that that would work for me. And I bought that OxyClean, and it began to work in my life. And when I ran out, what happened? I didn't need to see another commercial. I had faith that if I bought some more, it'd work again. That's what you people did for me. I came here and watched your demonstrations. I watched what you did. I'm going to tell you, that night that Billy Banks was doing that commercial on TV, had he been out drinking the night before, and when he started throwing stuff in there, he just puked right in the middle of that tub, I'd have clicked the channel and been doing something else, you know. And I think about that. I think about Don, because he had me on a milk route. He had me going to big book studies, step meetings, literature-based meetings. He didn't let me go to any of these open topic discussion meetings. He didn't let me go to these issues with tissues meetings, you know, wrist slasher meetings, you know, where you just want to kill yourself and you leave. He didn't let me go to none of those. And I think about the kind of demonstration the people of Alcoholics Anonymous made for me. They allowed me to come to believe that Alcoholics Anonymous will work for me. And when I go to AA today, when I go to my home group, I need to be that kind of demonstration you were for me. I don't need to go in there and vomit the problem, because a newcomer will look at that and turn and say, I can get that at home and leave. What I need to be is what you people were for me, a demonstration of the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous. You talked about this God. You talked about what he or she had done for you, this power in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I witnessed that. And before long, I was 30, 60, 90 days sober, and I knew I wasn't doing that. Don sat me down and he talked to me about that third step, that selfishness, self-centered. He wasn't one of those guys that said, okay, we've done 2, now let's pray and move on to 4. We discussed step 3. We talked about the requirements. We talked about the ABCs. Was I convinced? Was I convinced? We talked about the requirements, that any life on self-will could hardly be a success. We talked about fear. We talked about the degree of my selfishness. We talked about needing God's help. When I was fully convinced of all that, then we got down and did the prayer. I got busy writing an inventory. I shared that with somebody. That guy helped me make a list of people I'd harmed, and he also helped me to identify the defects of character in my life that had been troubling me. And I became as willing as I could be at that early in my sobriety to turn some of those over. I began willing to God remove those from me. But what I don't know is I neatly tuck some of those back in my backpack. I just hang on to some of them. I go about making amends, and I'm going to tell you, I had to go see federal judges and sit down with them and make appointments and sit down with them, knowing that anytime they could pick up that phone, there was a direct link to the U.S. Marshal's office. When you tell them, look, I didn't show up to your courtroom when you ordered me to be there because I was drunk, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be quite frankly. But to a person, what they did for me was they said, we just want you to get better. We're glad you're better. And they gave me their cell phone numbers, and a number of those I still have today. And from time to time, what happens is those judges will call me and they'll say, there was someone in my courtroom today that I believe that you can help. And what happens for all of us is our mess becomes our message. We all get to be pizza delivery guys. We all bring it hot and fresh. We deliver it, the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we deliver it without expectations. When they shut the door and take the pizza in, it's between their God and them what they do with it. You know, every day I try to remind myself that I watch out for certain things. I have to keep on guard to make sure these things don't crop up in my life. I have to engage in prayer and meditation to find this path, to keep broadening this path. One of the greatest things that's happened to me out of this pandemic is for 40 days, I got stuck at home with my best friend. I need to tell you, I absolutely love my wife. There's a period of time in my life I've been embarrassed to say something like that, but I love my wife. She is my absolute best friend. And these 40 days, we got stuck here together. And I hate to say this because I know a lot of bad things have happened, but she and I had fun together. But in that time period together, what happened is that I got like 2 hours a day because I wasn't doing anything else. I got 2 hours a day, from 1 to 2 hours of active prayer and meditation. And I've broadened this connection I've got with this power. Out of every tragedy, out of every trauma, everything that's ever happened to me, there's always been a miracle at the end of it. everything. The miracle for me is this intense spiritual awakening that I continue to be on, this 11-step seeking mode that I've been on. I've had this time, and just be honest, when could we have at any point in time said, I'm going to pluck 40 days out and sit down. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just going to sit here, be with my wife, and I'm just going to grow my spiritual life. I would have never done that. I would have never had that opportunity. And what's happened for me is because I've heard some people say these Zoom meetings, people aren't getting to AA, people aren't finding AA. That's not my experience. I'm going to tell you, if you're desperate enough to want sobriety, you'll find Alcoholics Anonymous. Whether we're at a church, a basement, or we're on the internet, you'll find us. And there are people who have found me, and I have found them on the internet. I have found them in these Zoom rooms, and we have taken the steps over FaceTime. They're out making amends now. 2 nights ago, I was giving a talk to a group up in Indiana, and a guy from Canada happened to be there. And I'll do what I always do. I put my contact information in the chat because I'm not one-on-one. Someone here might want it. You can't ask me for that, so I just put it in there for people. He took it. He called me. He texted me that night. He called me the next day. We talked about it. He said, I'm 30 days sober, and I've had this guy sponsor me, but I can't. He's kind of disappeared, and I don't know what to do. I said, well, where are you? And he told me where he was. He's about 2 hours outside of Toronto. And so I got on it with a friend of mine who is a good member of Al-Anon. I got a hold of her. I said, now your husband's in AA, right? Yeah. I said, there's a guy. How far are you from this town? She said, about 2 hours. She said, but my husband's going there today. He's going there tomorrow. I said, this is perfect. And so I called that guy, and I put him in a group text together. I said, this guy's coming there tomorrow. He's going to meet you. And he's going to have coffee with you, and we're going to let God figure out what to do. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. That's Alcoholics. Don't tell me that people aren't getting here. Don't tell me that we're not finding those people that still suffer. That's not my experience. If you're desperate enough for sobriety and people say this is what you have to do, I'm going to tell you, if they told me I'd have had to do jumping jacks at the end of the Lord's Prayer, I'd have been up for it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes because they told me willing to go to any lengths. I don't know what that looks like for you, and I'm not quite sure what it still is going to look like for me today. But I know what it's looked like for me up to this point, and I'm still willing to go a little further. I'm still willing to trudge the road a little more. There was a little boy, and he was running down the road one day, and he saw a sign, and it said puppies for sale. And he recognized where that was, and he took off to the old farmer's house. And he got there, and the old farmer was out in his yard, and he ran up to him and said, Mister, I see you got these puppies for sale. I want one. And the old farmer looked down and said, well, son, these are purebred dogs. These are expensive. You can't afford these. He said, but mister, I really want one. He said, well, buddy, they're just too expensive. He said, well, how much to look at them? And the old farmer looked at him and said, well, how much you got? And the little boy dug in his pocket. And he pulled out the change. It rattled around. He said, 56 cents. He said, well, that's exactly how much it costs to look at these dogs, 56 cents. So the little boy gave the farmer the money, and the farmer leaned over in the pen. He said, come here, baby. And the old mama dog come out of the pen, kind of ran down the ramp, followed by 4 little fuzzballs. And, man, they just came running down that ramp, hitting each other, playing, and the little boy just leaned into the fence. And out of his eye, he caught some movement back over the doghouse, and he looked, and another little fuzzball came out, smaller than the rest, much smaller than the rest. And he didn't run down, he rolled down the ramp. And the other dogs butted him around and rolled him around, and the little boy just leaned in once more. And he said, that's the one, mister. That's him right there. That's the one I want. And the old farmer bent down to the little boy where he could get eye to eye with him. And he said, son, you don't want that dog. That's a cripple. He's the runt. He's never going to be able to run and play with you like these other dogs do. And the little boy took a step back from me, reached down, he pulled up his breeches leg, and on each side of his legs ran 2 metal posts. And he said, that's okay. He said, see, I don't run so good either. And he's going to need somebody that understands. And the old farmer looked at him, and he stood up, and he reached down and scooped the pup up, and he handed it to the boy. And the little boy looked at him. He said, how much, mister? How much? And the old man looked at him. He said, paid in full. He said, your love will be enough. Your love will be enough. And that's Alcoholics Anonymous. I came here broken, busted, sad, sick, sorry. And there was an old man, and he stood at the door every day for me, waiting for me every day. And his love was enough. Thank you, Louisiana, for having me. I'm so grateful to be here tonight. God bless.